in Hinsdale, Illinois. After graduating high school, he attended the University of Wisconsin on a diving scholarship. I don't know how many collegiate Big Ten divers you know, but Joe is one of them. He received a Bachelor's of Business Administration degree in 1979 and an MBA from Northwestern University in 1988. His unique understanding of the complexities of family business stems from his own experience acquiring Belmont Steel Corporation in 1984 from his father. 6 years later, Joe purchased National Steel Service Center in Evanston and then merged it with Belmont Steel Corporation. As president and CEO, he led the growth and successful sale of the combined company in 1998. After the sale, his work life includes a variety of private equity investments and working at a Promise Capital, a multifamily office. Since May of 2017, Joe's worked at the National Christian Foundation. Joe and his family have a heart for the city's underserved youth on the city's west side. They started there in 1993 serving, right? So it's been a number of years. He has served as board chair and chairman of the Capital Campaign for Holy Family Ministries, a faith-based pre-K through 8th grade school located in North Lawndale neighborhood of the city of Chicago. Joe and his wife, Tammy, have been married almost 45 years. I love that stat. That's awesome. Anybody more than 45 years in here? We got it. Oh, yeah, all right. There we go. I love that. We got a few hands. That's awesome. I love it. More than 45 years and married to his bride, Tammy. Since 1982, they've lived in South Barrington and Barrington. They have 4 married adult children and 10 grandchildren. Joe and Tammy have been active members of Lutheran Church of Atonement on Main Street in Barrington for over 43 years. So this is a guy that has been in this community for a really long time. And you know, I'll just talk a little bit of the stuff that's not on the bio and just how impressed and I'm excited I am to have Joe here speaking. Joe's probably been coming here for about 5 or so years, so he's been here for a little while. And I heard him, I don't know, maybe 2 or 3 years ago, he was on John Sleeting's podcast. And that was the first time, you know, I've known Joe and a little bit about his background, but that was the first time in kind of a long format, you know, 45 minutes to an hour, I really heard his story. And instantly I'm like, man, we got to get Joe up on stage to share this story because he has such an incredible story. You know, and you see the things in his bio, right, in the business world, that the worldly success that he's had, which is impressive, and most of the world would say that's awesome. But knowing him as a man of God, too, is what's most impressive to me. You know, I get to see, there's a lot of times before I catch the train, I'll go to Cook Street Coffee, and I see Joe with his small group of guys just sitting around the table in there with their Bibles open. And that's one of the most encouraging things you can see with a group of men like that. How many years have you guys been doing that?
3.
Awesome. Just to see these guys sitting around the table together doing life, having their Bibles open when you walk into a coffee shop, it inspires me. I'm sure it does a lot of other guys too. And one final thing, there was a young man, Eric, who I had met here. And I was just talking to him right now, and he reminded me how Joe was the guy that invited him here, and that was after he caddied for him on 3 holes of golf. So somehow, in those 3 holes of golf, Joe decided he wanted to invite Eric to BMF, who's now attending, and it's just really cool to hear that story and just hear that this morning, how God put that story on my heart and told me about it, how in that short amount of time, Joe was sharing kind of his faith, encouraging the young man Eric to come here, and he's been here all season long, so it's really cool. Enough of me talking, though. I'm excited to bring up Joe to the stage and share with us. Joe, please come on up.
Just a sec, sorry. Got to get me up and running.
I can filibuster for a while if you need me to.
Please.
All right.
All right. Filibuster.
There we go. So we said we had 45 years. And who's more than 50? We have more than 50? 50? Feels like over 50. All right, that's being honest. I appreciate it. How many years, Coach? 53. All right. Mr. Cornwell, how many years? 58. Yeah, that's awesome. All right. Good stuff. What's that? No, we're good. We're good. Yeah. We're going to let Joe.
Oh, we got it working? They had me nervous. They said we don't have the board working, and I was going to have to do it. So First of all, I'm really humbled to be here today. It's nice to be asked to speak a little bit, but sometimes it's a little bit of a I get nervous. So if that happens, you'll know why. So I hope that some of the stories that I'm going to tell today will just resonate with you. It's kind of my story, which is unique to me. God's put me on a certain path, and some of it might help you maybe not make some of the mistakes that I made a little bit earlier in my life. So I think one of the first things most people do is they put up a picture of their family, and this is my kind of one of my current pictures. There's actually one more grandchild that's been born since this. This was 2 years ago. It was our Christmas card. So we got four kids. They're all married. 3 out of the 4 actually are living in Barrington, which is pretty crazy. They were living down in the city, kind of said they didn't think they'd ever come back, and then COVID happened. So maybe one of the positive things about COVID was they came back, and they're actually really, really loving being back in Barrington. So many of their friends have moved back, so it's kind of good to see that vibrancy and people coming back to. The next picture that I kind of wanted to show was this year's Christmas card. The other one was 2 years ago. And this is a little bit more what it's like for us when we get our whole family together. Now, you can tell they're in the outfits, the matching outfits. We're going to take this Christmas card. The heading for this was "Hark the Herald Angels Sing." In the background was like that. Now, in all fairness, what had to happen there was I had to be put in. Garen actually helped me put myself in because I was like, this is not working. I was upset. I knew it wasn't going to work. I was the typical, guy, and I left the picture. So we had to Photoshop me in. But what I love about this is that's my bride, Tammy. She loves the chaos. She absolutely loves the chaos of all the kids. And so that's a little bit more real. And we got a lot of people that actually said this year this was like their favorite Christmas card. They're like, it was very real. So hopefully I can be real today about what's going on. So first, I'm going to go a little bit more into a little bit of that background of my story about how things started. Like I said, I grew up in Hinsdale, kind of a normal home. It was great. I had two older brothers. I think you got a picture of my and that's me in the middle, living in Hinsdale. And my father was married before I was born. So my father had a really pretty traumatic situation where he went to. He was on vacation, came back from vacation with his wife. His wife said to him, "You know what? I don't want to be married." They had a 2 and a 4-year-old. "I don't want to be married anymore, and I don't want to see the kids. I don't want the kids. I'm going to leave." So she actually walked out, and she never saw my older brothers ever again. So that was pretty traumatic. My father pretty much. He was working, paying for child care, and he actually wasn't making enough money to actually cover his child care. So it was a kind of a crazy situation. He met my mom, and they actually met up in Lake Geneva. I'll tell you a little bit more about Lake Geneva, but they met up there, and they got married, and I was born pretty much right after that. So my brothers are 6 and 8 years older than me. But I never knew that they weren't this half-brother situation. I never knew that was the case. One typical neighborhood kid goes, "Yeah, those are your half-brothers." And I'm like, "What do you mean my half-brothers?" Because there was no other person in the family than my mom and dad, and they'd always been there. And they go, "Joe, you don't look anything like your brothers. They have bright red hair, by the way." And I'm like, "What do you mean, a half-brother?" I go home to Mom, and I'm like, "Mom, they're saying I'm half brothers." And they're, "Well, actually, they are." They just tell me the story. So that was kind of one of the traumatic, neighborhood type events that went on. So life was good. Everything was kind of normal. We went to a church in Hinsdale called Union Church. kind of a typical church life. I wouldn't say my dad was somebody who really liked to sleep in on Sundays, and he would say, the nature is my church. So I wouldn't say it was anything close to the church life that I have today. And then when my middle brother was 18, the day before, was the day after his 18th birthday, he actually was killed in an automobile accident where a drunk driver hit him going down to 83 the wrong way. So it's the day before graduation of him from high school. He was going to Northwestern engineering, and that just totally kind of changed our family. It was an awful situation. And I like to say that really our family's life went from being kind of in color. We were a skiing family and a sailing family, and had this place up in Lake Geneva, and it just kind of changed. It crushed my dad. My dad had gone to Northwestern. He was in engineering as well, and things never kind of recovered from that. My parents stopped going to church, and my older brother was off to college, and I was kind of left to just be alone with the family and trying to deal with the grief that was there. And we probably really could have used some therapy, but back in 1969, that kind of wasn't something that was done, so it wasn't talked about. So that was pretty traumatic. Some friends, when I started high school, got me to say, "Hey, you should come to Young Life." There's a thing called Young Life, and there was a family on Hinsdale, the Beret family, who opened up their house. It was one of the I lived on the side of the tracks that was much smaller homes. They're all big now, but back then, there was definitely two sides of the tracks, and this huge house. The Bray, Jim Bray, the senior, he was actually the president of Borg Warner, gave out the Indy 500 trophy every year. Just an amazing Christian guy. And so when Young Life has, to me, a really good model. They brought all the cute girls to a place. There was actually curfew on Wednesdays. You weren't allowed out on Wednesdays, but unless your parents kind of gave you notes. So you could go, and then guitar and it was a great way to kind of be introduced a little bit more back to Christ. I started going to Christ Church of Oak Brook that had been founded. Steve Carter is now there, and it's good to talk to him about that. And that really started me back into a Christian life. So that was kind of one of the things. But that major thing for me was a difficulty. Then the next kind of phase was went off to college. I dove in high school. I actually was an All-American. Bounced around where I actually was going to go to school. I was going to go to Princeton, and then it turned out that the coach from Princeton was going to go to Alabama, so I went down and I thought I'd go to Alabama. Actually started briefly at Alabama in the summer, and just found that it wasn't a really good fit for me at that particular time in 1979. It was a little bit different at Alabama than I really wanted to be, and dove well in a meet against Wisconsin in the summer, and they re-offered me a scholarship, so I went up there. And my Christian life in college was difficult because we had two-a-days every day, and you really only got one day off a week, and that was Sunday, and so I didn't end up going to church at all during that time frame. I'd say the next really big event that impacted me in my life was I met my wife, Tammy, there, and that was in my junior year, her sophomore year in college. And one of the things that I would talk about, I will be talking about, is that sometimes there are these things where God puts people into your lives, and you don't kind of realize until later how huge those particular things are. So that was one of the huge events for me. Tammy came from a very strong Christian family, and she kind of helped me come along in that regard. So we got engaged. I was a year older, and I graduated, and I wasn't going to not leave her there without me having asked her to marry me. And so her senior year, she was engaged, and we got married right after college up at our lake home up in Wisconsin. So that was one of the great things for me. So then went on business, was kind of a big part for me as well. Sorry, I want to tell you one. I just want to be real transparent. I've had some issues with my health. In the last 2 years, I had COVID 5 times, and it's really created some brain fog for me that's been pretty severe. And so if I sound a little disjointed, give me a little bit of grace because I've really been struggling with it a lot. So I appreciate that. It's it's just one of those situations. So if I'm a little more disjointed than normal, although my small group would say I'm always disjointed, this is kind of the reason. So I'm kind of a little off here a little bit right now. So we got engaged in 1979. We actually got married at our place up in Lake Geneva, and it was great. Now, I don't know if any of you have heard of this ever happening, but I was actually baptized on the morning of our wedding. So my wedding date, I'm almost 45 years on my wedding date. That'll be in September, and also 45 years for my baptism. So having 2 big events on the same day, how does that even happen? Well, we were doing a wedding at our place, and I could tell my wife was a little off on our wedding day, and I said, what's wrong? Are you thinking? She said, well, it's always kind of bothered me that you never were baptized. So I said, well, okay, let's get baptized, and so her pastor said, hey, I understand you'd like to be baptized. He says, why do you want to get baptized? I said, because she wants me to get baptized. He goes, we need to go for a little walk. There's a little bit more to it than just doing it. I like that you're starting off with the right posture towards your bride, but this is something that you need to kind of think about. So talked through it, got baptized, and interestingly, later I confirmed my baptism in Israel. We went on a trip with Saeed Alabouni was our pastor at Lutheran Church of Atonement, and he actually was from Nazareth. He was a refugee from Nazareth, and he was our pastor for a number of years. And it was great to have it re-baptized in the Jordan River. So I affirmed that again. But so that's kind of unique. Heard about my business background. That's been just kind of a crazy situation. And as far as my family business, when I got out of college, I just thought every family did businesses because my wife's family had a business. I would have been Gen 5 in that business, and my dad's family's business I was Gen 3. Gen 5, there were like 50 family members involved, so that wasn't an interest in it. It got sold pretty quickly after I graduated from college anyways. And then I used the money that had been given to me by my grandparents. I was able to actually start a trucking business that eventually allowed me to buy Belmont Steel, and I went on that career in Northwestern and all that. So, but during that, I would say going to church was kind of my thing. I did it because Tammy really wanted us to go to church, to be honest, being super honest. And it was, when people say, you want to, what are you doing on Sunday? I would use the phrase, I got to go to church. And I don't know, over time of my wife working on me with a lot. We've been in a couples Bible study together for 30 years. I have a group that kind of came out of this, friends that we meet. You were talking about on Wednesday. There's a Chicago Fellowship. There's a group down in Chicago that meets on Fridays. I started doing that 25 years ago. And it was kind of a slow drip process. I can't tell you exactly when it became a point where I get to go to church. I get to meet with these people. And so, being just really transparent, it wasn't like, I was always in a family that had that. It was just all sorts of, and there's a lot of people in this room that really dripped on me that just, kept, saying, hey, did you think about this? You think about that? So I would say really lean into those people and just kind of try different things. Try different things. And that's been a really positive thing for me. So I want to jump into, I'm going to talk about, I kind of got 5 themes. We'll see if I can get through all 5. Some of them might be posted, I'll post some other things, but I just want to tell some stories. I think one of the things I've really learned that I need to do is I listen to the nudges. God gives you, I believe, lots and lots of nudges, and you can kind of ignore them, or all of a sudden, if you lean into them, you're going to have some amazing things happen. So I want to tell a story about, our lake home is, we have last weekend was the weekend where we do it. It's kind of all hands on deck. It's been in our family. My grandkids are 7th generation from Lake Geneva. Something that we could never recreate today. So I think I have a picture of the place. And we plant the gardens ourselves. It's called Rainbow Point. It's 100 flats. We did it this last weekend. And one of the things we do for our children when they are thinking about, they're dating somebody or they're maybe going to become their spouses, we make sure that they come up and realize what they're getting into. So there's one weekend, it was like 15, 16 years ago now, and we did all the planting, we did all the stuff that we were going to do, and my daughter Aubrey had brought up her boyfriend at the time from high school, Jack. She didn't end up marrying Jack, but Jack came up. And great guy. But anyway, we ended up, Aubrey said, hey, let's go for a sail. And we like to sail in the Hobie Cats. And it was one of these I was exhausted. I didn't really want to do it. And so I don't know if you guys know what a Hobie Cat looks like, but that's kind of what it looks like. So super windy day. We get everybody hooked. We go out. The water's really cold. It's kind of freezing, but it's one of those days. We only like to go out when they basically say you shouldn't be out. We like to do just a wet, wild ride. We do this, and we also do ice boating, which is even more insane. But we're whipping along. We're going along, and we're coming back, and I see these guys in a rental boat. Now, it's a bright, sunny day, but it's super, really cold. And these 2 guys in this boat are waving us down, and they're like 100 yards down from us. And I'm like, how can I possibly help you? I'm in a sailboat, you need help, and all this kind of stuff. But I'm like, there's no way I'm going to. Well, all of a sudden, at the last possible second before I can pull down there, I didn't pull the rudder. The rudder got pulled, and I went down, and I'm whipping down towards them, straight downwind, and all of a sudden, I realized there's somebody in the water. And I'm like, oh my gosh, and he's in distress. He's about 20 yards from the boat. The boat is like, it's windy enough that the boat is drifting away, and I'm like, oh my gosh, we got like one shot for this guy. And I pull up, and Jack and I just pull this guy up and pull him on the boat, and he's in his underwear. He's bright blue, and I sailed over to the guy, and it was miraculous that we could even pick him up. First of all, he's a pretty big guy, and I say to the guy, hey, I can't worry about you guys. I got to get him to shore. So sail back to our place, sail right up onto the boat dock, and he's just like, we're trying to get him warm and stuff like that. What turned out to have happened was he was a swimmer in high school. He jumped into the water, and I don't know if any of you have ever jumped into water that's super, super cold, but you immediately lose your breath. Even if you're a good swimmer, you just can't do it. And so he's laying on the dock. His buddies figured out how to start the boat. What had happened was if you turn a boat off and it's still in gear, you can't turn it on. So they eventually figured out how to turn it on. They came over. They were embarrassed. He's sitting there. He really hadn't come to very much. I mean, he was kind of shaking. And they grabbed him and took him off. So that was kind of the end of the story, except for 2 weeks later, this guy comes. I get a phone call and go, "Hey, are you the Joe Pringle that has a place on Lake Geneva?" And, you know, and he says, "My name's Harry, and you pulled me out of the water and you saved my life." And I'm like, "Well, I want to tell you, I did not actually do that. It was really God did it, because I thought your friends were an idiot, and I didn't know what was doing, and I didn't understand what was going on." And he said, "Well, I just want you to know what I was thinking about when that was happening. I realized I was in trouble almost immediately. I'm trying to swim back to the boat. The boat's blown away really, really quickly, and I'm bobbing up, down, and I'm just praying to God." And he said I'd had trouble in my business, and I was trying to make a deal with God. I was just praying, "God, save me. I don't want to die. I feel like I'm an idiot for doing this." And it's Father's Day is going to be coming up. Like, I have 2 boys. They're going to be at the funeral. And he said, I went up one more time, and I came down. I said, "Well, this is it." And he said, I raised my hand up, and then all of a sudden, you grabbed me and pulled me into the boat. And, you know, I was like, I had no idea what the backstory was on Harry. I actually thought about having Harry come and kind of tell what he was thinking about when this was all going on, but he just felt like it was a miracle. And my point kind of is about the nudges is that when you get a nudge, sometimes you might be the answer to somebody else's prayer. You don't know. If you have a posture of being available for God, God will use you. I did not have that posture in that particular time frame, but it was very haunting to me. How many times did I ignore a nudge that maybe could have saved somebody's life? So since then, I've had a ton of circumstances where all of a sudden, I was walking to the Chicago Fellowship on Friday in Chicago, and all of a sudden, some people ran across the street, and a guy with earbuds on, started to walk across, and he didn't look, and he didn't realize that the light hadn't changed, and there was a bus coming, and all of a sudden, I just reached out and grabbed him, like I didn't do it actually, and pulled him back, and the guy was like, and the bus went right by. Well, it was the first time he was going to the Chicago Fellowship in Chicago. So the thing I really want you to just kind of think about is, if you have a posture, palms up, I'm available for you, Lord, he'll use you. So kind of the next story that I kind of want to talk about is, I think the next picture, actually, that was a long time. I didn't tell a story, actually. Head back, I got, sorry, there. Another big event in my life was that actually when I was 27, I just bought the steel business. Tammy had just had we had our first child, Ashley. And so this is a little bit after that, but this is about the time frame. So I'm 27, bought the business from my father, levered up with the banks, all that stuff, and I ended up having, I'm listening to the radio going into work, and there's, I don't know, some of you guys remember WLS and Larry Lujak, and he was talking about basically, they're catching cancer for women because of breast exams, and that you should actually, for adult males, young males and adult males, we should be checking for possibility of having testicular cancer. And he made kind of fun of it and mentioned some of the things to check for, irregularity, when you're in the shower, it's just when you're washing, you check. And I was like, huh. Now, in this era, it was really hard to ever take time off from work at all. You never kind of went to the doctor, especially at 27. And I got this nudge, I should go. I haven't been to a doctor in probably 5 years. So I go, sure enough, turns out, I have cancer. He's like, I want to do surgery tomorrow. And a little more of the story is Tammy's father died when she was 13 from cancer. And so now here she is. I have a ton of debt. Her father passed away from cancer, and her husband has cancer. So went through a variety of cancer surgeries, I'm obviously here, so that's a good thing. And we were able to have 3 more children after that. Didn't know if that was going to be a possibility, but it was a really a very rough time. And where God kind of showed up was I went through a lot of radiation therapy, and at that time at our church, the head of the radiation department was a guy named Dick Phillips, and he was a member of our church. And I don't believe that was a coincidence. And he came in for every one of my radiation treatments. He really wanted to make sure that I would be able to have more kids. Back then, they really radiated a ton of your body, so I've had some issues later in life now because of having that radiation, but it saved me. And so that was where that was with that particular picture. So now we can move forward. Thanks. There's a school down in North Lawndale, and back in '93, we got involved with this school. It's called Holy Family School. It started out at Cabrini, and when we got involved in 1993, they were actually in Austin. And they were in the Rose of Sharon Church, and they had been bounced around the city. And a lot of times, like in August, they would lose their lease, and they'd have to go to a different place. And I felt extremely blessed that, in a church service, we had somebody who was from Lutheran Church of Atonement was going down there and helping with this school, and they said, "Hey, would you be willing to do a scholarship?" So a scholarship back then for a student for the year was $330, and I was like, what they were really trying to do was exactly what I tried to do for our family, which was we really want to be able to. Our mantra was we want our kids to have a strong faith as they possibly can have, and get them the best education they kind of qualify for. Because with those two things, they can't be taken away from you. They're things that you can always have, and you can rebuild. And we talked about Hurricane Katrina came through. When that kind of thing happens in your life, we're all going to have a Hurricane Katrina, something drastic that'll happen in our life. We're all one phone call away from something. But if we can rely on our faith and our education, we can rebuild. So that's what we wanted. So got involved, and kind of the miracle of for me was I used to think why I read the Bible. I'm like why aren't there more miracles going on? Well, it turns out there's tons of miracles, and going on. You really just have to go where God's already at work. He might do things for you with your plan, but He's really wants you to be available to help Him with His plan. And so we got involved, and I got to be able to go and be involved with the capital campaign there. It's kind of a long story, but eventually we ended up building a school that was had $30 million of infrastructure around it, and then there was we built that particular school. I was down there yesterday. They did a ribbon ceremony where the kids are it's a private Christian school, chapel every Wednesday. When I was working downtown, I'd go on Wednesdays and go to chapel. It was just all these kids, just the Holy Spirit was bouncing off the walls there. So I just loved being down there. But down there yesterday, and our valedictorian this year is actually going to go to the University of Chicago Lab School, and we've had kids go to Lake Forest Academy, and They all go to really college prep high school, so it's great. Sorry. I'm trying to kind of think about some of the things I just really want to say to you. I feel so extremely blessed to have had people in my life that have really been gentle and patient with me about bringing me towards the Lord. I am like all in now on everything relating to that. There was a time in my life where my mantra was really only about I was having really good financial success, and it was about my stuff. It was how can I get more stuff, and how could I kind of show people, that I'd made it. And I have a much different posture now. I know that none of this is really mine. I'm just a steward of it. We can't take any of it with us. And how am I going to use that for others? And so, like Eric and I talking when I'm playing golf, I'm always kind of talking about God and where do you see God in your life, and being with people along those lines. And I feel very blessed to have been with so many people that have actually really, really helped me. I'll tell you one other trying to make it a quick story. We had a house in South Barrington. We'd been trying to sell it. We wanted to downsize. We really wanted to do something smaller. And we finally eventually were able to sell it. And all the time while we were selling it, it took us 2 years. And I was constantly going to my wife, hey, what do you want to do when we sell? Where are we going to move to? It's like, I don't know. We don't know. And so we get an offer. And finally, after 2 years, it's like, okay, what do you want now? She's like, well, I don't want to leave Barrington because I love the church. We can spend more time up at Lake Geneva, but I think we should just rent. I'm like, all right, give me a plan. And I had a friend who had a place in Barrington, and he showed it to me a couple of years ago. And I'm like, gosh, I really should link up with him and see if the place is available. And next day, I'm going to an event over in Glenview. It was a Christian event, a morning event. And I walk in, and there's that guy. And I'm like, hey, do you still have your place available? And he's like, oh, no, it's rented. And it's, well, because I thought it was the perfect place for us. And he goes, but they're moving out, in a couple months. Well, we're not moving out, And can I bring Tammy over to see it? And sure enough, here it is. We cut a deal, and I've been living there for the last 5 years. So, it's just been a huge blessing that I'm always trying to plan. I'd say as men, we typically try to plan too much. We need to hold things a lot more loosely. God's got a better plan. I'm so in love with my own crappy plan. I guess because it's mine, but the more I realize he wants so much more for me than the things that I want, he always comes through with something way better. So if you can do it, and it's really hard to do it, hold your stuff loosely. He's got people he wants you to meet. He's got people he wants you to talk to. He's got so many different things that he wants you to do that I just love to see what he does. When we do something, he's kind of like, well, that's cute. But I had a lot more for you. And I try to remind my kids to do the same thing, because I felt like I really tried to get them to do, he'd be really good at this or that. I think he has a math mind, so I think you should do this. And then all of a sudden it dawned on me, I'm probably getting in the way of what God wants to do with my children. Let them go to the Lord and figure out, hey, this is where I'm blessed. This is what I should do. This is who I should marry. When you sit there and try and puppeteer stuff, you're doing things you're only steward of your kids too, and we're there for a time, and he's going to be with them forever. And his plan, again, is always better than my plan. So I would say, really think about those kind of things with your family. One last quick story, because I know I'm getting towards the end. I have a book that I'm really convicted about. This was a really wise guy that I got to meet very tangentially. He actually happened to be a swimmer. Turned out when we talked to each other, he happened to be in a pool together. He was 3 years younger, but he was over at Hinsdale training in the summer. He became a state champion with swimming for Mount Prospect. And his record lasted forever in the freestyle, or I'm sorry, in the butterfly. But he did not have a swimming pool, so he came to Hinsdale and actually trained with our team. He went on to be a Big Ten champion. Was a phenomenal swimmer and went into the business world, went to Indiana, and he ended up going to Citicorp. And he worked his way up Citicorp and then eventually became the head of Citicorp. And his life was in shambles. You get the book, you'll be able to see it. And his name was Tom Cole. And he happened to have a heart condition, and he had a heart attack in the Widowmaker, which 95% of the people die. He was actually swimming, training kind of later in life. And he survived, which was a miracle. And he got in his mind, I really need to kind of I need to write a book to my kids, because his marriage failed. He had all sorts of issues of things that happened. And he started New Canaan Society in New York City, and then one down in Naples. And it was really on fire for the Lord, and he really wanted his kids to know a lot. And after I read his book, I was like, gosh, I wish I could copy and paste like 95% of this, because it was very well read. He articulated kind of everything I would want my kids to know, or anybody in my life that I'm parenting for, a godparent as well as a parent. And it's laid out in chapters where each one could almost just be a devotional, and then there's it's kind of like, here's the main points I was wanting to do and all this kind of stuff. So one of those nudges that I had was, we were supposed to get together and play golf in the summer. A guy named Greg Lernahan, who's another person who's a mentor of mine. And we didn't get it to happen. And it was before Christmas, and I was like, we're talking about doing it the next spring. And I'm like, gosh, I gotta call him. Let's I'll go down to Naperville and we'll have lunch. So 2 days before Christmas, we go down and we have lunch. Great meal, talked about his book. He originally called it Fatherly Advice for Navigating the Pathway to Your Best Life. And he goes, I got some edits, I'm going to change it, I'm going to republish. He self-published the book. And 2 days later at Christmas, I get a call, and he had a heart attack on Christmas Day, and he actually passed away. It was the third heart attack that he'd gotten this book. So I think there's a ton of wisdom and knowledge. One of the points I wanted to make is that, we really get people around you that have some wisdom, maybe have done some things that you haven't done. Hear their story, spend time to really hear what they're about, and they'll help spur you on. So I bought like 25 books. So if anybody wants a book, I'm that convicted, get the book. If there aren't any left, just reach out to me. Give me your address, name and address, and I'll send you one of the books. But I think you'll really be blessed by this. And some of my friends who've read it really are like, this thing really rocked me. It's really, really good. So much more laid out and articulate than I was able to be this morning. So thank you.
Thank you so much. And if you want, do you want him to come up front here and grab it from you afterwards?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, come on down. Tell Joe what you thought about just this testimony. Grab a book, please. And like he said, He'll send you one too if we hopefully we get rid of all 25 and most of you guys will can get another one. I just really appreciate that story. I love just the posture with which you talk and knowing your story from that 45 plus years of marriage to the business trials and tribulations to making sure that you're using how God stewarded you and the talents He gave you to be generously bless others. So thank you for sharing that with us today and for leading us, Joe. I really appreciate it. Thank you. And just to piggyback on what he said, listening to those promptings from God. Well, how do you listen, right? I mean, speakers have talked to us. Coach Schweider talked about this. God talks to us through His Word, through reading the Bible, and we get to talk to Him through prayer. And it's that open two-way communication. That when you're in that, people say, how do I know if that's from God or not? Well, if you're in the Word, you will know when that is coming from the Lord. So that two-way conversation of us talking to Him through prayer, Him talking to us through His Word, will have you hearing more from Him and hearing those promptings. And then also just the power, like you talked about, of those mentors, the people that you're sitting around the table with, people that are in your life. If you don't have those, that's what we hope to, that's part of the main mission and purpose of this room right here, is that we wouldn't just sit here and listen and learn a ton, but that we'd also garner friendships so people would be involved, people would want to serve, people would want to grow deeper in life. And so that discipleship aspect of what our group is about is really key to us. Trying to find other men. There's plenty of options. Where's Derek at? Derek is our head of discipleship here. We have many small group options. If you're like, hey, I'd like to get plugged in with a group of guys, here's kind of what I'm looking for. I'm a morning person. I'm an evening person. How do I find a smaller group that I can do life with, that I can grow a little bit deeper in my faith? Come see Derek afterwards. Come see me. Come talk to Joe and see about what him and his guys are doing and how they were able to do this and be successful in a small group.